Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the salutations are upon Rasul A'azam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise the ranks of my Murshid Kareem, our Murshid Pak, our Kamil Rahnuma, our perfect guide. Time is very short, so mukhtasar snippets. Qibla Mufti Sahib mentioned a wonderful narrative regarding Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu an, Khisalul Khair Salasumiatin wa Sittun. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is from Kalami Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, says Subhanallah. He is the one who says, Ma kharaja minni illa al-haq. Nothing leaves my honorable mouth except the truth. He says, Khisalul Khair Salasumiatin wa Sittun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted 360 khasla, qualities, faculties. إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِعَبْدٍ خَيْرًا. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends good upon one of his servants, he gives them one of those attributes, and by the means of that one faculty, يَدْخَلُ al-Jannah, he enters into al-Jannah. Abu Bakr, many a time in his life he would work, his words would be isharatan. And this is part of the etiquette of Abu Bakr radiyallahu an. So he says, Afiya minha shay? Do I even have one quality of those? And Abu Bakr radiyallahu an receives a response from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Na'am jam'a'u min kulli shay. Ha Abu Bakr, har khobi tere andar hai. You have every faculty. This beauty you see in front of you today, our Honorable Sheikh, this beauty is that particular Faisal. Faisal and Nazar coming from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. His creation is a long story. We don't have time for that. But Muqtasar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allazi yaraka hina taqum. Ke e mere Habib, jab tum qaim the, main dekh raha tha. Ihtimam ke saath. Wa taqallubaka fi sajidin. Jab tum sajda karne walon mein phir rahe the. Meaning when you were traveling through the loins of your forefathers, from Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, onwards and onwards to Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, onwards until he reached his honorable parents sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Tab bhi main dekh raha tha ihtimam ke saath. So this is through Faizan and Nazar. You have the Qul Kainat, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has been dictated by Faizan and Nazar to the nazar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just his light alone, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If you pick up the Muslim of Al-Bazzar, Abdul Razzaq San'ani, rahimahullahu ta'ala, a very long narration regarding the takhliq of the nur of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There comes a point where the Rasul says, Summa nazarallahu ilayhi. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did nazar karam upon that particular light. The light of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Fatarashaha nur araka. Wo nur motyon ki tarah bikhar gaya. It turned into pearls. Through there you have the creation of the awliya Allah. The creation of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu was salam. How honorable, how lucky you and I are. How fortunate you and I are that we are sat in front of a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've said this many times before. It is repetitive. Lekin this is something we require in this day and age. It is fine discussing the shan of awliya. But until we are not ba'amal, we don't come into this playing field, then that will remain as ta'arif. For they are individuals who are being given basharat by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When are you and I going to receive that basharat? How do you and I receive that particular basharat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Khalid bin Ma'adan, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma min waladin, or ma min adamiyin. He says, not a single person, illahu arba'u a'yunin. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him 4 eyes. Aynani fi ra'sihi, 2 in the head, and aynani fi qalbihi, 2 in the heart. The eyes of the head, that's no issue. Me and you look all day at our phones. We look everywhere in the dunya. But it's the eye of the heart where we have an issue. There seems to be some sort of closure within the eye of the heart. Why? Because we do not follow the words and the kalam of the great men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I believe we're still in the month of Rabi'ul Thani, is that correct? I believe so. The month of Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. that great man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions regarding this opening. And this opening is not going to be achieved by just sitting around upon our phones. It is only received through the suhbah of the men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, when the Rasul, he left for hijrah, he says to Abu Bakr, empty the household. It's just me and you. This is exclusive. It is just me and you, this news. He said, Inna Allah ta'ala azina li fil khuruji wal hijrah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the izn that it's time to go now migrate to Madinatul Munawwara. It is time to illuminate Madinatul Munawwara. So the Rasul says this, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he has no further response. He has one response. As-suhba ya Rasulullah? As-suhba ya Rasulullah? Sayyida Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha ummul mu'mineen, she said, Ma sha'artu qat qabla zalika al-yawm. Never before did I have sha'ur, did I recognize, or did I know that a man could cry out of happiness. Save on that particular day, when I see my father, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he cried out to the joy. Why? Because of suhbah with the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khalid bin Ma'dan, what does he say? We need to open the eyes of the heart. Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, what does he say? He says, sit with the Ahlul Basira. Sit with the men of Basira, the men who have this eye open. This eye open, which increases yaqeen. He says, فَالْوَاجِبُ عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ تَحْصِيلَ عَلَى تِلْكَ الْعَيْنِ. It is wajib upon insan to go join with those who have this eye open. Have this eye open. Who are those? He says they are those who are tuftatu. They are those who have the chest open, who have ayn ruh, who have the eye of the soul. And that eye of the soul is not going to be attained by the kutubs. I'm not saying to turn away from there. We sit in the madrasa. Nachiza sat in the madrasa. We encourage that ilm al-zahid should be taken. This is the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But why is there no encouragement that we sit with the men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When Allah Hazrat radiallahu an, rahimahullahu ta'ala, he says that you can be an alim, you can be a zahid, you can be an abid, but this eye is not going to open until you sit with the man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Same with Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. Again, I finish on this. He says, wajib al-insan, that he sits with the man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La tukhsalu bi-ilmil zahid, walakin bal bi-ilmil dunil batin. He says, you're not going to receive that particular knowledge from ilmul zahid, rather through ilmul batin, the ilm of the inner. That is only available to those who sit with the men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma lazzatul aishi illa suhbatul fuqara. There is no lazza in zindagi save in the companionship of the men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.